This is the Patrick Netherton Show, 1130 The Tiger, 103.3 FM, and we're very pleased to welcome in LPGA legend, now the lead analyst for NBC and the Golf Channel. Morgan Pressel joins us now. Morgan, how are you?
I'm great, Patrick. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I do have to ask. I know y'all have the week off. How much time does it take to recover from working with Grant Boone for 4 days?
Oh, man, I haven't worked for him in like a month, and I'm still recovering.
See? Perfect. Yes. Obviously, Grant's one of our very good friends. Love him to death.
Yes, mine too.
Mine
too.
You know, it's interesting because I know you kind of did this on the side to start with as doing the broadcasting thing. When did you kind of decide you wanted to make this something you did with a little more of a full-time look and effort?
It's kind of something that I had thought about for a while. It's honestly not something that I've really talked about very much. So, but I'd kind of gotten a little bit frustrated with golf, as one does, but anybody who plays golf is
it's a 4-letter word for a reason. There's no doubt.
But I definitely had, gotten a little frustrated, and the folks at Golf Channel had kind of always said, if you're ever interested, let us know. So I kind of started to be like, well, maybe I should at least see what it's like if I were to do a little bit of broadcasting. So last year, I worked a kind of a partial schedule. I think I worked 12 weeks last year, and I was playing as well. I was kind of trying to do both. And I think that was harder than I had originally thought in my head. Like, I kind of thought, I can do both. But, the amount of work that it takes to be on top of your game in either side, but especially in golf. Like, you can't just, take 3 or 4 weeks off to broadcast and then, jump back in on the first tee and be like, okay, I'm ready to compete with the world's best. It doesn't really work that way. So I learned that pretty quickly. And, I felt like it was just the right time for me and to try something different. And I really have enjoyed broadcasting. It's kind of thrown into the fire, so to speak, from the get-go, but trying to learn on the fly, and I've enjoyed the challenge. And, the team at Golf Channel has been great. Grant, of course, has been wonderful to work with, along with the whole rest of the team. They've been very kind in dealing with my learning curve.
Right.
And it's been a lot of fun.
I've got to imagine that's a weird transition, though, because you go from the ultimate solo sport. Now, you've been on various cup teams and whatnot where you've played in sort of team events, but golf is the ultimate solo sport. It's basically you and your caddy, and while your caddy always is good, you ultimately have to step up and hit the shot. No one else gets to hit the shot for you. What is that like, going from a sort of very solo-oriented work to now a very team-oriented event where you have multiple analysts? You have Grant sitting next to you. You're throwing it out to various folks at various groups, and then people that are trailing the groups. What's that like, kind of working as an ensemble versus working solo?
Yeah, it's definitely different. I think there is a general instance of an ensemble when you are playing golf, because it is you hitting the shot ultimately, but my caddy and I worked together for 13 years, worked very closely together, coach, strength team, physio, all those kinds. So there is a little bit of an ensemble, but you call all the shots. It's a little bit different from that perspective. So it is weird to say that, I have a boss. It's kind of strange.
Yeah.
I actually have never had one, because I've always been, I've run my own business, so to speak. But, it's great. It's like a dance with television. I'm sure it's quite similar with radio, but how all the pieces fit together, and not only the 5 or 6 analysts and hosts that you hear, but all of the people behind the scenes that you don't hear or you don't see that put in so much work and effort to bring the show to your television screen at home. There's just, even more than I even realized. And I've been in the sport for a long time, and I've been in the booth, and I've been in the truck, and it's still just the passion that, all the people have that work on the team and behind the cameras. And it really is a tremendous ensemble that puts this giant dance together to make it just perfect every day.
Yeah. And you mentioned not being your own boss, the producer, the director, they're calling shots, they're telling you where to go. You ultimately are providing the analysis, but you definitely don't get to call the shots like you used to.
No, but we work together.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say it's it's not there's something that I've learned that another player is working on or something that I think might be interesting to show. We all work together to try and bring the most interesting stories to light. So I think that's I find that as part of my job. How can I make the show? What can I do to add value and interest to the show? Who can I talk to? What inside information can I get? I spend a lot more time talking than I used to playing golf as an individual sport. I mean, think about all the hours that I spent on the range, with my headphones in, listening to music or a podcast or whatever. And now a lot of my free time is calling a coach or, talking to players on the range or talking to caddies or trying to, I told this, we had a rookie dinner about a couple months ago. And I said to the rookies, I said, I love to walk the range. I said, if there's anything interesting that you want me to talk about, I'm here to tell your story. I want to share your story. And if you don't tell me, I'm just going to make something up.
Yeah.
Something to talk about.
Well, it's funny.
But
No, it's funny you say that because it's very similar to, I call games, much like Grant, I call games for a university here in Louisiana. And so I tell the players all the time, if you don't tell me things about you, I can't just make it up out of thin air. I can talk about the game or whatever, but if you want your story told, you have to tell me what it is. I can't just make it up. And when athletes do questionnaires, we tell them that all the time. Like, give us information so that we can tell the story. Otherwise, we can't make anything up about you. We'll just ignore you, for the most part. So, being able to have that relationship is great.
Yeah, and of course I'm just shortly removed from playing, so I do have a lot of great relationships on tour, and they're all wonderful. If I'm like, hey, what do you got for me? What can I talk about today? Give me something to talk about.
Yeah.
They're all helpful in that respect, and it is. I mean, we're telling their story, so whatever it is that they want talked about, this is their platform, this is their opportunity. And we want to there are so many incredible stories on the LPGA tour, in my opinion, that have been untold and need to come to light, and there's new ones that show up every day. So
talking to Morgan Pressel, former LPGA player, still dabbles a little bit, but now getting into the broadcasting side of things. You mentioned there's stories that need to be told, and one of the things we see, and it seems to be similar in all of the female professional sports, right? The WNBA trying to kind of be on the same level as the NBA in terms of salaries, in terms of television, all of that stuff. We see that even in women's soccer, right? The U.S. women's national team is better and more successful than the men's team has been. They still struggle to have that sort of equal footing. Where do you feel like the LPGA is in terms of trying to be on more equal footing with the PGA?
I think we're slowly gaining on it. And I say slowly, but we do have had some incredible partners that have signed on in recent years. I mean, I think back to KPMG, who really took the Women's PGA Championship to a whole new level, and it's just an incredible major championship. And then AIG came in with the Women's British Open, and they have elevated that purse and prize money and stature of the event. And in golf, even more so than purses, is also venues. Like, venues are so important.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to play the same venues that you've watched your favorite PGA Tour players compete on, you remember those moments in U.S. Opens or PGA Championships or Open Championships. And so for us to be able to play those same courses really elevates those events. And then, of course, this year there was the announcement of the U.S. Women's Open with ProMedica joining on board, and now the biggest purse is $10 million. That's going to be an incredible event. It's only not even, it's like, what, about a month away.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm really excited for that. But it is partners like those companies who can also inspire others. They come on with big hopes and dreams, but it kind of lights a fire under others as well to, hey, these women are amazing and they're worth investing in. And it's time to give them the opportunities that they deserve.
You obviously, you mentioned you're not that far from your playing career. You still know a lot of the players that are on tour. I'm sure friends with a lot of the players that are on tour. Where do you fall on the occasion to need to be critical of something? Johnny Miller kind of made his living at being more critical of players than any other analyst. Of course, he was older. He was a little farther removed from when he played, and so he didn't necessarily have the same relationship with the other players on tour that an Azinger or a Curtis Strange or some of those guys had. Where do you fall on, hey, I need to point out that this was either a bad swing or a poor club choice or something like that? How critical do you feel like you can be, especially when you know that you are friends with a lot of the folks on tour?
It's a great question, and it is so much harder than it looks.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that it's been a learning curve for me every day. I kind of look at it as a golfer, when you've hit a bad shot, when you've hit a poor putt, and I was always that person who you pretty much know right away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a personal thing to say that was a poor shot. We all hit poor shots. I mean, golfers, for the most part, the best golfers in the world would tell you they probably hit 4 shots exactly how they wanted to a day. That's it.
Yeah.
4 shots. Other than that, they're playing their misses, and their misses aren't that bad, but you're missing most of your shots. So I think it's something that obviously Judy Rankin, who was the lead analyst for so many years for the LPGA, she really walked that line beautifully. She was respectful but critical when needed, and not in any form of a condescending tone. But hey, that wasn't a very good shot. That wasn't what she was trying to do, or however it is to be seen. And I say that's something that I'm still learning.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say I've made mistakes in that in the last year plus. I've made a lot of mistakes, but and I'm highly self-critical to a fault, so that makes it even worse. But it's something that I'm constantly learning. But I think just being honest. I'm not gonna be critical just to be critical.
Right.
But if there's something that I see that, that wasn't what they were intending to do, or, that was a much easier shot than what the result was. And we all hit bad shots. It's the nature of the game. I've hit a million bad shots. I'd be the first to tell you. So I feel like as long as I approach it with that honesty and that humility of, like, it's golf, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the angle that I've tried to come from, and I think it's such a delicate balance.
Yeah, well,
learning.
But that's the great thing about the sport, though, Morgan, is you have a sport that almost anyone can pick up and go try, and they can have been there. It's hard to go say I could go play I can't put on pads right now and go play in a football game. I'd tear all my
yeah. Serena Williams.
Exactly.
So like have that. Yeah.
But we can kind of empathize with someone hitting a bad shot. We've all been there when, this is a perfect 7-iron distance. I'm going to knock this close, and then you hit it in the pond. Like, we've all been there. So I guess that I would imagine makes it easier in some way to have empathy for what they're doing, because you've done the exact same thing they've done.
I've done it many times.
Well, and it's interesting you mentioned that you're very critical of yourself, which is healthy, and certainly in kind of learning a new skill. But I'm curious if you try to use any of the mental tricks that you had when you played golf for broadcasting golf. I know a lot of times they talk about, hey, have a short memory. Right, you hit a bad shot, you gotta flush that away. You gotta go back and concentrate on what's ahead. Can you or do you use some of those mental tricks while you're broadcasting?
That's You're full of good questions today.
Well, thank you. I'll be honest. It's one of my strengths. All right, I'm a good interviewer. So
that's a very good question.
Yeah.
It's not someone that I've really thought of, but it's actually interesting. So towards kind of the end of my playing career, so to speak, and then starting into broadcasting, I've actually been working with this group called NeuroPeak Pro, based out of Grand Rapids, and a lot of it is based on breathing and technique on breathing in stressful situations, whether you're on the tee or whether you're in the boardroom or whether, for me, on live television. Live television is so intense. And having a breathing regimen to kind of calm yourself down in those moments of, we do have commercial breaks, so I have that opportunity to kind of take a little bit of a lull, just like you would walking in between shots, that kind of a thing. So I've used some of those tricks, transitioned those into broadcasting. But short memories are good. It's almost like television is just faster than golf, so you don't have as much time to dwell on what happened until later.
Yeah.
It's like when you get home, then you think about, oh gosh, why did I say that? Or I should have said this instead, or I had the opportunity here and I missed it. But it's almost like with TV, you kind of have to just keep going and then kind of analyze later.
Right.
Whereas golf, you analyze a little bit more on the fly. You can, we've all had that bad hole, and then it's lingered. Those thoughts have lingered for like the next 3 holes, and like, how could we not pull ourselves out of it? Golf is, in general, a little bit slower, so you have that time to think. The 6 inches between your ears is the most dangerous, the hardest club to hit.
Yeah.
In golf, it's just
no doubt about that. You mentioned Judy Rankin, who is an absolute legend. Was a terrific player, and then obviously a very long career as an analyst and a broadcaster. I've got to imagine that's maybe the most intimidating thing about going on television is following in those kind of footsteps.
It is so intimidating. I mean, Judy is, just like you said, an absolute legend, one of the kindest people I've ever met, just incredible golfer, just a pioneer in broadcasting. She really set the stage for somebody like me to get into a career in television after golf. And she was such a pioneer in that respect. And of course, nobody's more respected. I don't know if anybody that I know is more respected than Judy Rankin.
No.
So they are massive shoes to fill, and I do not take that lightly. And yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, it really is. And look, I've obviously gotten to watch some of your work, and I think you're going to do a fantastic job. The number one thing in broadcasting is, as you mentioned, honesty, being yourself, and being critical of yourself, going back and watching your stuff and seeing what you can do better, especially as you're learning the trade craft and as you go along. And I think you've got the requisite tools. I will tell you this. I know that part of your contract with NBC and Golf Channel is you do have to give so much praise to Grant Boone on a regular basis. If you need some good lines to praise him throughout the course of a broadcast, let me know. I'll send you some good stuff that you can use. Just talking about how great he is.
Please send me that.
Okay.
Please.
Has he sung for you yet? Have you heard the pipes yet?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Oh, of course.
Good. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Of
course.
He's got a great voice. Yeah, he's got a great voice. Look, voice. I'm not sure how that voice comes out of that person, but it's pretty impressive. I'll tell you that. And obviously, we love Grant to death. He's one of our favorites. Morgan, thank you so much for your time today. We really do appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing more of your work as you go on. I know you're going to do some of the men's events as well, which is awesome. And we look forward to watching your meteoric rise in television.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Enjoyed the chat.
All right.
Thanks,
Morgan Pressel, the former LPGA star who now is the lead analyst for Golf Channel and NBC.